just understand, though the touch of your hand makes my pulse react, that it's only the thrill of boy meeting girl. Opposites attract, it's physical, only logical. You must try to ignore that it means more than that. Whoa, words of love got to do with it. Words of love, but a second-hand emotion. Words of love got to do with it. Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? It may seem to you that I'm acting confused when you're close to me. If I tend to look dazed, I've read it someplace. I've got cause to be. There's a name for it. There's a phrase that fits. But whatever the reason, you do it for me. Whoa, words of love got to do with it. Words of love, but a second-hand emotion. Words of love got to do with it. Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? I've been taking a new direction, but I have to say, I've been thinking about my own protection. It scares me to feel this way. Whoa, words of love got to do with it. Words of love, but a second-hand emotion. Words of love got to do with it. Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? Words of love got to do with it. Words of love, but a second-hand emotion. Words of love got to do with it. Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? Words of love got to do with it. Words of love, but a second-hand emotion. Words of love got to do with it. Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken?
Welcome to church. We are so glad that you're here because this church is much more than just a building. It's a family committed to loving God and loving people. This church is a safe place for anyone and everyone. No matter who you are, where you came from, or what you look like. Because at this church, we believe that God is many things. But most of all, God is love. And He has called us all to share His love with everyone. Welcome to church.
Well, good morning, church. I'm glad to see you all were able to drag yourselves away from thinking about the Super Bowl for a little while to come join us this morning. Why don't y'all stand up and worship the Lord together today? I saw Satan fall like lightning. I saw darkness run for cover. But the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. I believe in signs and wonders. I have resurrection power. Still the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. My praise belongs to you forever. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Come together, sons and daughters, bought with blood and washed in water. Sing the praises of the Spirit, Son, and Father. Our God will finish what He started. Yes, our God will finish what He started. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. If I'm not dead, then you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, then you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, then you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, then you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Amen. Can we give him a hand clap of praise this morning for that? I love that song because we get to worship him for the things that he's done for us, right? For what's happened in our lives. We're going to sing another song about the evidence of his goodness. And man, is it not a good morning to worship him for the evidence of his goodness? I love that. All throughout my history, faithfulness has walked beside me. The winter storms may wait for spring. In every season, from where I'm standing, I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life. All over my life, I see your promises and fulfillment. All over my life, all over my life. Help me remember when I'm weak. Fear may come, but fear will leave. You lead my heart to victory. You are my strength, and you always will your goodness all over my life, all over my life. I see your promises in fulfillment all over my life, all over my life. I see the cross, the empty grave, the evidence is endless. All my sin rolled away because of you, oh Jesus. See the cross, the empty grave, the evidence is endless. All my sin rolled away because of you, oh Jesus. I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life, all over my life. I see your promises and fulfillment all over my life, all over my. I see the evidence. I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life, all over my life. I see your promises and fulfillment all over my life, all over my life. So why should I fear? The evidence is here. Why should I fear? The evidence is here. I'm caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you. I'm sorry when I've just gone through the motions. I'm sorry when I just sang another song. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. And I'm sorry when I've come with my agenda. I'm sorry when I forgot that you're enough. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. I'm caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in holy moment. I never want to leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you. I just want you, and nothing else, and nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you, nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you, and nothing else, and nothing else, Jesus, nothing else will do. I just want you, and nothing else, and nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you, and nothing else, and nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you, nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. Nothing else. Sing, I'm caught in your presence. I'm caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave. Don't come for blessings. I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you could do. I just want you. God, that's our prayer this morning. More than anything that you could do for us, we just want your presence this morning. We want to be with you this morning. We're so grateful that you promised to be here because we have gathered in your name. What a privilege it is to be in your presence this morning. We ask that you would bless this time that we have together, that you would reveal more of yourself, more of your truth to us today. It's in your Son's name that we pray. Amen. Go ahead and be seated.
Love has the power to change someone's day, to lift someone's heart, to comfort someone's soul. Love is a language that everybody speaks, men and women, young and old, rich and poor. Love is the character of God, who loved us before we loved him, who loved us so we could love one another. Love is not just a feeling, it's a commitment. Not just an emotion, it's a decision. Love is about giving, not getting. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. This is the power of love.
Good morning, everybody. So I got a microphone today instead of the headset, so I like to talk with my hands. This might be weird. I don't know. We're going to go for it. So about 2 weeks ago, there was some big football game, I guess, and then Mike told me, hey, I'm going to go on vacation. I need you to take over for a week. So if you don't know who I am, I'm Ryan. I come here often. Sometimes I talk up here on the stage when Mike needs a vacation. So it's interesting to me that 2 weeks ago there's a football game. Mike has his priorities set out in line where he goes, I'm going to go celebrate football. And after that comes God and the congregation. Thank you for laughing. That is a joke. He's planned this out for months. It was not 2 weeks ago. Just so happens to fall on the Super Bowl. So anyways, does anyone know what we're talking about today? Love. Good. Great start. So what we are talking about is we are referencing the 5 Love Languages book that Gary Chapman wrote. In that book, he references, obviously, 5 different love languages. And today, we're talking about one in particular, and I'm going to go ahead and put a picture up to give you an idea. If you don't know who we're pulling for in this town, then you just don't know where we are. Physical contact, physical touch is one of the 5 emotions, one of the 5 love languages, and that's my love language, as my wife will tell you. I am very much a physical contact type of person. When it comes to my wife specifically and my children, it's how I communicate my love. I love to give hugs to them. I love to, give kisses, hold them. When we're watching TV together, it doesn't feel right if I'm not holding a hand or if somebody's not in my embrace. So it's different. I know a lot of people have different forms of emotion or different forms of love, that the way that they show love. My wife specifically is acts of service. She will go do just about anything, and then at the end, I know that I am appreciated because that's how she shows me her love. But really quickly, we talk about love a lot. Oh, also, coincidence. Valentine's Day is in 2 days, so guys, if you're like me, it's already too late to go get flowers. But good luck. So, if you're like me, who lightly read the Bible coming up or didn't read the Bible very much coming up, there's a lot of stuff that in the Bible that talks about physical touch. A lot of people don't know about it too. In fact, I would argue that there's an entire book in the Bible that talks about physical touch as a love language. Anybody want to take a guess on which book it is? Okay, that's not fair. You can't just shout it out right off the bat. Some people were supposed to get it wrong first, and then we were supposed to go from there, but that's fine. Song of Songs. It's a very short book. I'm going to read a short excerpt from it, and we're going to go right from the start. Chapter 1, verse 1. The Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for thy love is better than wine. Because of the savor of thy good ointments, thy name is as ointment poured forth. Therefore, do the virgins love thee? Draw me, we will run after thee. The king hath brought me into his chambers. We will be glad and rejoice in thee. We will remember thy love more than wine. The upright love thee. The whole book is like that, if not worse. So there's this belief, especially in America right now, way more before, that there's a certain way to love your wife, and it's outlined in the Bible, and that belief comes from Puritans. When we first came to America, Puritans were this overwhelming Christian religion, and they taught people that there is a certain way, there's a certain rule set, and it is very strict within the Bible. I disagree. I think there's lots of ways that we communicate love, and the Bible communicates love in physical touch. I think it's very open. Now, Mike gives me a hard time. If you've been here before, if you haven't been here before, Pastor Mike is usually the man standing up here giving you guys the sermons. I'm sure most people in this room know, but there's a couple people watching online that tuned in just for me. I'm the reliever, kind of like the closer in baseball. I come in whenever They get tired whenever Pastor Mike gets tired and he needs a break. So I like to come in and say things a little bit different, but Mike likes to give me a hard time. He says that I reference the Bible too much. I rely too much on the Bible for our religion. I personally believe that this is our heartstring. This is the backbone of our religion, is the Bible. If we did not have these 66 books, it's not one book, it's 66 books. If we did not have these 66 books, it would be tough to reference what we believe in. Now, obviously, this isn't our entire religion, right? Because there are things that have happened since and before the Bible was written that we also believe in or that we reference to. So, but I do believe that this is somewhat of the backbone of what we believe is what's in the Bible. Now, having said that, it's okay if you don't agree with me. That's okay. I still love you anyways. So, I'm going to give you guys a question really quick. Does anyone know of a story that's in the Bible that relates to physical touch? Can anyone think of any of them? Perfect. You guys just don't all yell out at once. It's all right. Okay, so there's actually a lot. Pretty much all of Jesus' miracles took place with physical touch. Now, I'm sure you guys first thought of, like Adam and Eve, right? Well, creation of Adam, kind of, right? But then God goes in and literally takes an organ away from Adam, a rib away from Adam, and creates Eve with it. Arguably physical touch, but pretty much every single one of Jesus' miracles includes some sort of physical touch on another. Lazarus didn't, but there were, when he cured the blind man, he comes up, he takes mud, and he puts it on the blind man. I wanted to come up here, and I wanted to say that Jesus was not a physical touch type of person, because one story rang out in my mind. So there's this story in the Bible. I'm referencing Mark 5 or Matthew 9. I'm actually going to use both of the stories because they add little bits of perspective that are slightly different. So Matthew 9 explains that this man loses his daughter. She dies. She's 12 years old at the time. And this man goes running to Jesus and he says, "Lord, please come with me and heal my daughter. You're the only one who can help her now. She's passed away. She's dead. Please come help me." And Jesus goes, I'm paraphrasing here, "All right, dude, let's go." So Jesus goes to this man's place where his daughter lays dead. And to get there, he goes through this super crowded room. And the disciples are trying to form. If you guys ever seen a celebrity who's going through the public and they get crowded by a bunch of people, they usually have a bunch of bodyguards around them. That's basically what Jesus is doing to get through this crowded room, because there's so many people there to support the family of this poor 12-year-old girl. And so Jesus is trying to get through this crowd, and while he's trying to get through this crowd, a woman reaches up and grabs his clothing just for a moment and lets go. Now, in Matthew 9, Matthew just talks about it as like, hey, this woman grabs him and that's it. Mark goes into detail about how he turns around and he gets onto her a little bit about it. Who touched me? Who touched me? Because Jesus felt part of his power go away in that moment. So he asked, "Who touched me?" And he turns. Matthew again references this woman, explaining that she has a disease of the blood. That's all he gives us. I tried Googling, I tried searching, I tried contacting scholars, friends of mine. No one really knows what disease it is. It could be anything. But disease of the blood is what she had. And as soon as she touched him, she was healed. She goes, "I'm sorry, Lord. I touched you. I was sick. I needed help." Jesus immediately turns and supports her and gives her love and understands that she was going through something tough, and he forgives her for it. Knowing this story, I immediately said, this guy doesn't like getting touched. It's tough for me, because I'm a big fan of we should try to live a similar life as Jesus lived. So it's tough for me to be a person who is a physical contact type of love to say, oh, I'm similar to Jesus because we have physical touch. Well, it's not necessarily true, because I've been to Disney before. If anybody else has been to Disney, you walk through big crowds there, and even though I love, having physical contact with my wife and children, I hate being touched by strangers in a crowd. It drives me nuts, and I think most people are like that. Like, we do not need to be this close to each other. We could spread out a little bit. So I don't blame Jesus at all for that, and I feel like I'm similar in that regard. Don't reach out and just grab my clothes, please. So I get where he's going with that. The fascinating thing, I know more people are invested in the 12-year-old than the woman who had the disease. He does continue to walk into this room where the 12-year-old lies dead, and he says, you guys, you're wrong in your assessment. She is not dead. She's sleeping. And they laugh at him in a time of such, despair, such sadness. I find it weird that it talks, both Matthew and Mark both say that they mocked him. They laughed at him when he said this. But they did. Probably the doctors. What do you know? So Jesus looks at them and then goes, okay, well, let me show you. He goes over, he grabs her hand, physical touch, right? And he whispers into her ear, it is time to get up. And she gets up. And she walks around the room. Now, if you've been here a lot and you've heard me talk before, you probably heard my first sermon, which was about my son when we were in the NICU, which is the neonatal intensive care unit, where my wife and I did not know how it was going to go for our son, but we're really happy because it went very well for us. But we did meet some people that we assume it didn't go as well for. And I could only imagine. It kills me that that's the end of the story, right? Like, there's normally a rise, a climax, and then a falling action, and then a resolution when you're talking about good stories. In this story, she gets up and walks around. There's nothing after that. Which it's great to hear that he healed her, but what happened with the parents? How did they feel? Did they not rush and hug her immediately? It just ends. That's it. Mark, Matthew, both of them. That's it. Nothing more to add here. We're good with that. To me, that story was extremely powerful because there's multiple forms of physical contact in there. There's unwanted and there's wanted. Another option that we had to talk about, I don't know if you're going to consider this one a miracle or not, but Jesus' baptism. Jesus, passing by in his travels, goes and sees the River Jordan and turns to John and says, John, you and I were going to go out there, you're going to go baptize me. Again, I'm paraphrasing. Don't hold me against it. We're going to go out here, you're going to baptize me. And John immediately, as I think most people in this room would be, I don't think I'm the right guy for that, right? Like, there's a lot of people here, why me? And Jesus explains John also tells him, like, you should be baptizing me, not the other way around. Something is inaccurate here. And Jesus explains to him, why not you? You're a great person. I had you follow me. You are one of my, disciples. Why would it not be you? So John takes this great honor and goes out and baptizes Jesus in the River Jordan. Skies open. A dove flies out. God speaks to them. This is a big moment, and it teaches us that baptism is the correct path for us, especially in the Christian religion. Baptism has a ton of significance, but what the great part for me about it is that you, hopefully, when you were baptized, if you were baptized, you entered into a situation with someone who you loved and trust. That was your pastor, preacher, minister, whichever you want to call it, because I try to include all religions here because we love everybody, right? So when you go into that situation, this person, the whole baptism, it's symbolic, but it's also physical touch. It's loving, embracing, letting the water run over you while you truly profess your love for God. If you haven't been baptized, talk to Pastor Mike when he gets back. It's a symbolic moment. It's a beautiful moment. And it's something that we truly appreciate. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stay with what we talked about, or what we did last week, which was if you came here with somebody, it doesn't have to be your spouse, it can be anybody that you came with, but take a couple moments to share a time that you had physical contact with one another and it meant something more than what was in the moment. This could be a wedding, right? At the wedding, you sit there and grab each other's hands while you profess your love to each other. Could be at a funeral. Could be anything in between. But I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes. Talk to the one that you came with. If you didn't come with somebody, try to find somebody and have a conversation with them about a time that you really enjoyed and embraced that you got, or something that meant more to you. All right, go ahead, guys. Did I hit the button right? Oh, I did. I did a good job. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much. So, there were plenty of times that I can think of. I'm wondering if anybody else had the same struggles as me as I talked to my friends over here. It's harder for me to think of times that I really appreciated the physical contact. It was easier for me to think of times, as someone who speaks physical contact as a love language, it was easier for me to think of the times that I needed someone to give me a hug, hold my hand, embrace me and tell me that it's going to be okay, than it was to think of times where I had it and I enjoyed it. Did anybody else have that problem? I see 0 hands. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome. So for me personally, the thoughts that I had was when I was 22, I was in the Army, and I was in a barracks room. I had just joined. I was four months into the Army. And I was sitting in a barracks room by myself, and I realized that my dad hadn't answered the phone. And so I called him again, and it was unlike him to not call me back immediately. My dad had me at a later age. He was 50 when he had me. And so I called him back again, and again, and again. He was 72 at the time, 70 at the time of this. And he never answered. So finally I call a friend of mine, a recruiter of mine, and I say, hey, can you go check on my dad? You know my address. It was right down the street from where my recruiter lives, so I didn't think this was asking too much. So I said, hey, can you go find out how my dad's doing? He goes there. It's 9, 10 o'clock at night. The lights are turned off, and he goes, I don't think anybody's home. And I go, well, that doesn't check out. My dad is 70 years old. It's 10 o'clock at night. There's nowhere else my dad would be. So I go, hey, here's how you get into the house. Can you just open up the door, say who you are, get in the house? Well, I think everybody knows where this story's headed. My dad was physically there, but he was no longer with us. In that moment, while I sit in a barracks room with a bunch of men who some of them I appreciated, some of them I didn't, it was one of the hardest moments for me because I had nobody. I had no one there with me to hug me, to tell me it's okay, to hold my hand and walk me through this process. And to go even further, I cried the whole night, as you do when you lose your dad. I don't think that's a sign of weakness. I think that's a sign of honesty. I cried the whole night, stayed up the whole night, couldn't sleep. And then the next morning, I go downstairs for our formation where I'm being told that I'm going to leave for at least a day or two to go help with my father's situation. And I go downstairs, and instead of getting the love and support of my fellow soldiers, I instead get a conversation with one of our leaders. Now, this person was not the best leader I had ever been in the company of. And instead of trying to understand me, instead of trying to have a conversation and explain the opportunities that I have in front of me, such as I can go speak with a chaplain, I could go and work with a counselor, I can go meet with people, instead of explaining these things that the Army offers to all of its soldiers, he instead had a conversation with me, a 4-hour lecture about how I shouldn't kill myself. I'm glad you laughed. At the time, I was really upset about it. As time has gone on, I've really laughed about how awkward it was to sit in that room for 4 hours while I was supposed to be driving home to go find my dad and figure out what to do next. Obviously, the police had already come, all that stuff. But nonetheless, I got a 4-hour lecture on how I shouldn't kill myself. And it was the most alone I had ever felt in my life. I was single at the time. I didn't even know my wife. My wife wasn't in my life yet. I'm sitting there across the table from this man who was more concerned about his suicide numbers than he was about the person who sat across from him. These are the situations that stick out to me, or stuff like that. There was another time I told you about my son being in the NICU. What they do in the NICU is they take your child from you, they place him in a fishbowl type of incubator type of object, and then from there you have to look at your child from a distance. Now, I understand the importance of it. I understand why they do it. Medical industry knows what they're doing, right? These nurses and doctors, they were very well informed, very well trained, and they treated us with the utmost respect and were fantastic. But it was hard for me because one thing you want to do, one thing that I want to do, as my love language is physical contact, is reach out and hug my son, my brand new, not even a 2-day-old son. I want to reach out and hug him and tell him that it's going to be okay. I could tell him that it's going to be okay. He doesn't understand those words, obviously. He's 2 days old, 3 days old, 4 days old. He was in there for a couple days. But what he does know is that he could hear us, but he couldn't feel us. There was a survey done, not a survey, a test, a scientific test, experiment, that they had babies that were in orphanages. This was back in the 1940s. They had babies that were in orphanages that did not get physical contact very often. They tested those babies and their development against babies who were in loving homes where the families commonly embraced those babies, hugged them, and loved them. This experiment went on for a couple years, and now, in the 1980s, they determined that this experiment was so detrimental to the children that were not touched, that it is not safe to do this experiment on monkeys anymore because of how detrimental it is to the actual mental well-being. So there's a couple ways to go about this. Either number one is that you can look at me and say, hey, his love language is one of the most absolutely needed in the human language. Physical contact is one of the most important love languages that we have. Or the other way of going about this, you could say Ryan has the most primitive one, which means he's the least developed, which means he's probably like the most immature. To which I will accept all of the above. I'm fine with that. He who has not sinned, throw the first stone, right? Like, good for y'all. So the book that we're reading from, okay, let's not drop everything, Ryan. Good job. Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages. I had never heard of this book. I had never heard of the 5 love languages until I met my wife. And then after I met my wife, she told me, you have one love language, which is physical contact. And to which I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. I don't know what that means, but thanks. I looked through here. I have a couple others, but we did the test. I was like 34% physical touch. That's my life. That's the way I go. That's fine. I live with that. But there are some interesting challenges that Mr. Chapman gave us here at the end of this chapter. So if you don't have this book, there's a lot of interesting reads in here. I would encourage you to get it. I would also encourage you to take the test that Mike sent out in an email a couple weeks ago that talks about this. Because if you get the book and you find out what your partner's love language is, there's a lot of interesting ways that the book tells you is better to communicate with that person. So I'm going to give you guys a challenge from the book this week. He gives us 7 challenges at the end that says if your spouse's love language is physical touch, do this. Number 3 is the one that I'm going to recommend to you if you are following along with the book. Walk up to your spouse and say, "Have I told you lately that I love you?" Take her in your arms and hug her while you rub her back, and continue by saying, "You're the best." Then untangle yourself and move to the next thing. It's a challenge that I give to all of you. Try to do it one time during this week when your spouse isn't expecting it, when a loved one isn't expecting it. Just tell them that they're the best while you give them a hug. See what happens. And with that, let's go to God. Dear God, thank you so much for the miracles that you have performed. Thank you so much for being in our lives and giving us ways to show our love to one another. As we go forth today, please protect us. Please keep us safe. Please help us make good decisions, and please help those around us to make those same good decisions as you have. Please keep everyone safe today as they travel to and from their places that they're going to celebrate this fun opportunity, this fun game, and please stay with us this week through Valentine's Day and the rest. I ask that all people in this place have the strength and the will to carry on no matter what happens in their lives. And I hope everyone this week gets a form of the love language that they so desire. In your name we pray. Amen.
Would you stand as we respond to the goodness of our God?
Never fails me in all my days. I've been held in your hands from the moment that I wake up until I lay my head. I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your voice, you have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I'll give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendering now. I'll give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. So my life, 'cause all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God.
Please, hello? You guys hear me?
What's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? What's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can't be